being more difficult to acquire, more costly to acquire, and maybe more dangerous to acquire, and slaves falling in price, and because of a more healthy environment being a better investment, we see this transformation. We also had an opportunity to talk about, the international slave trade, the Middle Passage, the experience that African Americans had when they came here, the difficulties, and how slavery is going to influence the places where it goes. And what did we say was the biggest influence that slavery had in the Chesapeake and in the Carolinas? Does anybody remember? Kelly, go ahead, let it rip.
Class stratification?
Yes, social and class stratification. We said that, where slavery went, some people prospered greatly, common people had a more difficult time being successful. Slaves and land translated into money, but not everyone could get slaves and land. After we talked about that at some length, we went back up to New England, and we talked about, New England and the healthy nature of the environment there, and how the health and vitality of people in New England and them migrating in families results in a kind of different life. In the Chesapeake region, you have slaves, land, blended families, disease to some level, individuality, separated plantations, few towns, few cities. In New England, you have communal living, towns, families, a natural reproduction of the population, small farming, and we talked about that for a little bit. One of the things that we did not talk about, which is again on your test that you might want to look at, is the Salem witch trials. Much is, incidentally, much is made of that, the Salem witch trials. I know my daughter is at Boston University, and what they do there, which I think is kind of interesting, when you take composition, when you take a composition class, Comp 1, you pick a subject that you are going to write about the entire class. So you can take Comp 1 and maybe your focus would be something having to do with the Civil War, some other. Well, she took Comp 1 and her focus was the Salem witch trials. And she's in Boston, and so that Salem is right next door, so it's kind of interesting. But our professor in that class wrote a book, a popular novel, called The Psychic Something of Dane. It was New York Times bestseller, which was about the Salem witch trials as well. I forget the actual title of the thing. But I was talking to my daughter about this. She said, the professor said, there's all kinds of discussion about the Salem witch trial. What was this all about? But one of the things that she mentioned, her professor, was that this kind of was an indication of the end of kind of Puritan fervor. And it was kind of a backlash. Why is this all happening? We sort of talked about this today. Why is this all happening? Why aren't people interested in religion? It must be because of witches, And so there's a lot of things. But you want to look at that in your book. You want to look at the Salem witch trials. We also talked about, in terms of New England, that Calvinism, soil, and climate defines New England. That people are forced to try to eke livings out of bad soil. Calvinism joins people in a common purpose. Climate makes things healthier for people. And so the result is, New England is going to develop differently, more orderly, more organized, focused around towns, church, education, things that don't exist in the Chesapeake. That kind of took us up to the last 2 days of our discussion. In the last 2 days of our discussion, we were going over the commonalities amongst British North America, in British North America. Once we established all the colonies, we said, look, there goes maybe he's leaving. Right? We said that it's got to be cross country. It's got to be cross country. We said that that these colonies were different, but there was a common base. And one of the things that we mentioned as a common base was the rapid population increase in colonial America in the 18th century. Mulcairn, just for fun, The 17th century is the 1600s. So that's going to be on the test. It's going to say in the 17th century. Then you're going to know that's in the 1600s, right? And then it's going to say in the 18th century. And you're going to know that's the 1700s, right? So everybody's going to know that because it doesn't refer, sometimes it says in the 16th century, in the 17th century, right? Now, in the 17th century, we talked about the rapid population increase and we associated that with land. We talked about ethnic diversity. Oh, incidentally, who were the two largest non-English European groups to migrate? Mike, right? What is it?
Dan.
Dan. That's very close. Go ahead.
German and Scots-Irish.
German and Scots-Irish were the two largest non-English groups. Hey, what was the largest non-English group? Yes, go ahead. Africans. 20% of the population on the eve of the Revolution. What area of colonial North America was the most ethnically diverse? What area of colonial North America was the most ethnically diverse? Go ahead.
Middle colonies.
The middle. Kandrak, you're on fire. You're out of your mind. Yeah, the middle colonies were the most ethnically. Hey, O'Toole, what colonies were the least ethnically diverse? No. No. Yes, go ahead. New England. New England was the least ethnically diverse. What did most people in colonial America on the eve of the Revolution do for a living? What did most people in colonial America, go ahead, Dave.
Farmers.
They were farmers. Most people in colonial America were farmers. Right? Most people did that for a living. I mean, there was some fishing and other things, but most people were farmers. Now, what was the difference between the new lights and the old lights? What was the difference between the new lights and the old lights? We did this today. Yes, go ahead, Emily, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Well, Karen, I'm on the boards. I'm on the boards now, you know what I mean? I was O for the year, and then I pounded that out. Go ahead, Emily.
Like with the Great Awakening, the old lights kind of rejected this new, radical.
Very nice explanation. The new lights embraced it. Yes, very good. Very good. And so the Great Awakening, fundamentally, what was the Great Awakening? It was a religious revival, right? That had far-reaching consequences, we think. Who was the big preacher? There were two big preachers associated with the Great Awakening. Go ahead, Meredith. And who else? Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield. I mean, there were others as well. Now, that completes the things on the test that we have talked about up until this point in class. The test is 53 questions. 53 questions. Now, tomorrow we'll talk about one more thing, which will be on the test, and that's going to be it. It will be politics in colonial North America. And it just so happens, tomorrow is Constitution Day, where there is a federal law that says we have to mention the United States Constitution in the lesson. So the Congress of the United States will be monitoring what I do tomorrow. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, will be checking up on me. I bet you they arrest Wheeler. I bet you they throw him in jail. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for your time. Yeah, your mom will take you. Yeah.